Timmy.
You're here.
Hey, buddy.
We're here. I guess you have power in your house?
I have power. I have Wi-Fi. Get this, Timmy. We never lost power. Now, we turned off the power because they told us on the news, if you're leaving, turn off all your power. So we still had to throw away all of the food and all that stuff. But apparently, for the first time ever, my house did not lose power in this storm. And yet the other side of my cul-de-sac did. And the line that came down in my yard. And we found out yesterday that it was like sparking and dancing all over the yard. It burned down a tree on the other side of my fence. So the house that I'm sitting in right now, I'm in my parents' house, which is like legally my guest house. It was like 8 feet from being burned down, and we had no idea until 4 days after the storm.
That is slightly terrifying. Somehow we did not lose power, but as most of you know, we did lose most of our roof.
You lost a roof, so there is that.
I'm blue tarping it right now, but hey, you know what, Andy? We were live and in person yesterday because, well, I think you know, yesterday was Sunday.
And this right here
is the
morning after.
Welcome to the Morning After Ministry Show, a caffeine-fueled look back on the week and ministry that was.
Well, hey, if you're just joining us for the very first time ever, this is the Morning After Ministry Show. And whether there's a hurricane or not, apparently, we go live each and every Monday.
We do this on Monday mornings, about 11-ish.
We talk the week in ministry that was. Obviously, these last few weeks have been a very different kind of ministry. I've had several reach out from around the country and, basically kind of saying the same thing. These are not your seminary classes. Like these last few weeks of ministry are not something they've covered in seminary at all.
I didn't have a removing flooring 101 class in seminary, but it would have been nice.
Yep.
It would have been nice. Poking
We've
holes in
removed
drywall
flooring
to check for mold.
We've sliced out drywall. We've blue tarped roofs. We've you name it. You name it.
Tim,
City Lights Church says, "Wow, glad you guys are okay." City Lights, you're gonna love this. I talked to a certain Andrew at Lakeview Church who said, "You know my buddies at City Lights Church." I love the small world connection. Hey, if you're up in the Electric City. They didn't get a hurricane. They still have power. You're looking for a great church.
Of course they have power. They're in the Electric City.
They're the Electric City.
They can't lose power. Also, if they lose power, there's one place that there will always be light.
Always.
That's City Lights Church.
But how great is it that we have a direct connection to City Lights Church through a Lakeview member? I just love that with all my heart. I love it with all of I found City Lights. You're going to love this. I found that out as we were chopping up a rather large oak tree. Just so you know, Lakeview sustained minimal damage, but the oak that fell down was a big mama oak. It was massive.
It was a beast.
We're talking 2 full days, dozens of chainsaws, big boy toys to get that thing out of there so that way we could have a safe campus for Sunday morning. We had one glass window absolutely blown out, glass everywhere. Water did come into the worship center. It was a little musky, the scent was. So I cranked the air way down yesterday.
When you sent me the picture of the glass, of the window being blown out, my first thought was, oh man. But then I realized the construction of the Lakeview Worship Center, it's cinder block, and then it is those doors. So there's no drywall that you had to worry about.
Correct. That's the good news.
That's kind of cool how that works. Any other place, any other building, that would have been
they're meant to bow
worse.
And flex, so the doors do move with the wind. There was just a latch at the bottom of one of the doors that had come loose, so the metal was actually smacking into the glass, and that's what caused it. City Light says Andrew and Erica are the best. Hey, Andrew and Erica were both chopping up that tree for us on Friday and Saturday. They really are the best. Laura says, Timmy, beware of mold. I know. Someday when I see you in person, I'll tell you of my health saga of 22. That's terrifying. Spoiler alert. It was mold.
It's not good for you. It is not good
mold
for you.
Spores in your lungs, not a good thing. Earl, I'm with you. Andrew on a roof with a chainsaw is better preaching than anything Billy Graham ever said. If you didn't see it, I should have had it ready to go for the show this morning. For the first time ever, Andrew held a chainsaw. For the second time ever, Andrew was on his roof. It was an amazing weekend.
I go on my roof every year to put up Christmas lights. and every year when I'm on my roof doing the Christmas lights, my wife says, hey, should you do like the walk around and check the shingles and get the leaves and stuff off the roof? And I'm like, I don't want to. I spent several hours up there Friday afternoon. I'm getting tree branches as thick as wiffle ball bats, but like, the fat wiffle ball bats. Oh yeah. Not the yellow ones, the red ones. And the chainsaw that I have is one that I share with my father since, he lives in my yard. And it's the little battery-powered 6-inch saw kind. And
not quite a man's chainsaw.
No, it's not quite a man's chainsaw. But I didn't cut off a finger.
Your sons could operate it great, though.
At one point, the chain came off, and I Googled, and I replaced the chain and everything like a man. So that was a lot of fun.
I am so proud of you.
We still haven't gotten to the backyard. We spent 2 days cleaning up our front yard, and then it was Sunday, so we have not gotten to the branches that are in the backyard. You have a very established
neighborhood, which is why you needed to evacuate for so many reasons.
Left.
Those trees coming down on your house.
It was crazy.
Terrifying. Oh, your whole street did go?
I think that maybe 2 or 3 people say it. I just got a message from my wife, who's a Pinellas County schools teacher, who's saying that it looks like there's still no school tomorrow in Pinellas County.
Are you serious?
Means here's how this has gone in our county. So, Helene hit on a Thursday. That week, Monday was a scheduled off day for the public schools. So my one private school kid, he was at school Monday and Tuesday. Everybody else was just at school on Tuesday, then off for the rest of the week. Then they went to school for a week, and then they were off all last week, and now Monday and Tuesday of this week. So my Christian school kid, he's got way more school than his brothers. He's at school right now. But we have a soccer game tomorrow. Today. Yeah. Because the Lutheran school is good, but we have a soccer game against a charter school.
Pinellas County schedule. They just do their own thing.
They follow Pinellas County's schedule for canceling, but not for coming back, because Pinellas County can't come back because they've got schools being used as shelters, and they have some schools that don't have power, and so they can't have like half the county go back to school and then half the county not. And so I think as of this morning, 20% of Pinellas County was still with no power, and so that's why. It just didn't make sense administratively, it would be a nightmare. So his school they will always cancel when the county cancels, but if the county is slower coming back, that's why.
Yeah, my kids are off today. I believe, and small Christian school. I checked the church's live stream yesterday, which was someone's phone, because the church has no power. So I don't know if their church has power yet. As of yesterday, they did not. So I don't know.
That was us yesterday. We had some people say, hey, is there any chance there's going to be a live stream? So I used my $20 USB to iPhone microphones, which worked okay. And we put the iPhone in the back of the room, and turns out Ecamm Studio directly from Safari on the phone will still let you go to multiple locations. Wow. So we live streamed, and it was just okay. But we had a short service yesterday, but we're not ready to talk fully about Sunday morning yet. So Tim, storm blew through Wednesday night.
Roof blew off. Water.
You were texting our group chat, and it was, hey, I think some of my neighbors are losing their roofs. There's shingles in my yard. And then you realized, oh, those are all my shingles.
Yeah, I heard scraping on my roof. I was convinced that someone had climbed up on my roof in the middle of the hurricane, taken a shovel, and just started scraping my roof. Turns out that was the hurricane force winds shoveling off my shingles. So I went out to the yard, and they were swirling, like literally like in a circular pattern. And I'm like, this is not good. I took that picture, and then I started to run inside, and my son was with me, and about 10 pounds of shingles landed a foot and a half in front of him as we were running back inside. And that's when I made the call. We're not coming back out here until these winds are gone, because he almost got hit with 10 pounds of debris in my front yard, which would have been Probably pretty bad, I'm guessing.
That would have been a concussion for the ages.
Yeah. So that was some people out of state were asking, have you experienced winds like that before? No, not even close. Like I've been a Florida boy my whole life. I was born in Brandon. I was born in a hospital in Florida. Lived here almost every minute of my life. So lived through a lot of hurricanes. People were asking if I was going to evacuate. We were not in an evacuation zone. We were not in a flood zone. And like secretly, I've wanted to be in a hurricane, like a real one, for most of my life. I just don't want to see the destruction. I just want to experience the winds, which is why I was outside. You just want to experience it. Yeah, like I like.
Did you ever do that field trip at the Museum of Science and Industry or whatever that is, where you like are in the wind tunnel, like this is the greatest thing ever?
And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And Andrew, you know me, I like to be in the room where it happens. I want to be in the room where it happens.
It's not as cool when you're actually in it.
No, the whole house was shaking and the roof was coming apart. That's just not the best feeling. And then you hear, "We got water," and so we're running upstairs with buckets because water started pouring through multiple spots in my ceiling because the roof was gone. So we're filling up buckets of water for most of the night, which again, not really what you want to have happen in the middle of a storm.
Are you glad that you stayed?
Yeah, I can't imagine leaving. We wouldn't have been home to fill up the buckets. Like that would have been major flooring damage had we not caught the water immediately. So, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad we stayed. Our hurricane shutters were on, so we weren't going to have any window damage or anything like that. Unfortunately, my pool screens somewhat survived. I got seven panels out on my pool screen, which
I did the full.
It's the top panel, and those are the most expensive ones to replace, so that's gonna suck.
Yeah, they gotta bring in the crane to do it. I did the full walk around the pool, and again, I posted a picture of my wife in front of our rubble pile, and it was as tall as she is. She's not very tall, but still, it's a good 12 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 5 feet tall at this point, and we haven't gotten to the backyard, but we just have a bunch of mature oaks on our property. Fortunately, I think we had one tree actually fall, and it was in part of our backyard, and then other than that, it was just a whole bunch of branches. So we don't need to pay to have our trees trimmed this next year because they are thinned out. But I did the full. I had not. The pool was green. We had, I think, 14 inches of water. 14 inches of rain in 24 hours at my house. So my pool is just pea soup looking green right now. So yesterday I began to do the chemical treatment on the pool to get it back to normal. We still have our pool furniture in the pool. So we got to, but I can't send a kid in to get there when it's swamp colored. No. So as I was doing that yesterday, I started to look at the panels, and we have several more that trees have either poked through or so it's just, yeah.
When is the last time you rescreened the cage?
I think 2013 it got rescreened right before we moved in.
So it's due.
And it's due. It's time, but it's not cheap. And unlike, you're going to be meeting your insurance deductible. I'm not, so I can't complain. You're going to be out of pocket, 5 figures. I will not be, so I can't complain as to the damage to my house. Now with the church, Lakeview had the one giant tree down.
Window out. But other than that, the church was pretty much clear.
So we
now
have
the
no
disc golf
Wi-Fi.
course was flooded, dude. There was one hole where the water was past the basket. It was wild, but it's all. But
the holes are still there.
Oh yeah, everything's still there. Just lots of trees down. So the disc golf course is going to be a few weeks in the making before it's up and operational again, I think.
We didn't have power yesterday, but the decision after Helene was, if power's not restored, we're not going to gather for worship. And maybe because this storm was on a Wednesday, not a Thursday, and also it was just a different kind of storm. Helene was the water, and the water you can kind of you can tell when it's going to come, so you've got time to get out a little bit. It was just a different kind of destruction. I mean, the number of huge trees we have all over the place. And so our elders and I made the decision, hey, let's go ahead and have a worship service. We don't know what it's going to look like. But we still had no power Sunday morning. And so we said we're going to do the food thing that we usually do. So we sent out an email and said, hey, if you have power, if you have a working kitchen, consider bringing something. We're going to eat before we worship. And it's going to be a short service. So we only did 2 songs. I had a 18, 19-minute devotional, and we ate breakfast. Turns out cooking for the church, which I do maybe a couple times a year, it's a lot easier if I have access to the church kitchen with 4 stoves and 2 stoves and 4 ovens. Excuse me. So we got the food to the church at about 9:30, and then people started rolling in, and we had, about 80% of our regular Sunday attendance to sit in a very sweaty room and drink coffee that was brewed via plug into a generator, and breakfast casseroles and stuff that people brought from home. We had one family that whenever there's a big event, they make homemade tamales. And so they made homemade tamales for about 100 people, and we didn't have 100 people. So I got to take home a bunch of homemade tamales. So that was awesome. But we had a service with no power, no Wi-Fi. And then as we were cleaning up, the power truck pulled up and started to restore everything. We're like, oh, this is great. And I got a call from the preschool director about halftime of the Buccaneers game that, hey, they say the power's back on, but you need to get down here. This isn't right. So I went in, and it was full on poltergeist. It turns out they restored power to the pole, to the power pole that we connect to, but the line to our building got mangled in the storm. And so it's just lights pulsating constantly, air conditioners making horrible noises. It was really,
you walked
really
in
pretty
and,
bad.
And you were like, they're here.
Yeah, it was scary. So I called. We have a former elder who, when he was asked to come back onto the board of elders, he's like, how about if I don't, but instead you let me be in charge of all building and grounds stuff? And unless he's leading 30 or 40 people to Christ himself each and every year, I don't know that he could do anything more for the kingdom than he's doing by being in charge of all of our facility stuff. We've had some, the roof project we just did, the bathroom project, all that stuff is all him. So I'm calling him as I'm going through the building, and he just said, Andrew, you need to turn off the main breaker and get out of there. It's going to start a fire. It's not good. So now we're just kind of waiting to see when we can get back into the church building, when the preschool can get back into the building, because you have parents paying tuition that are waiting for their kids to come back into what the tuition that they're paying for. And the preschool is kind of on us, like, hey, when can we get back in? But it's like, well, the building's not safe right now, and that's not on us. So hopefully the power company's out today. The internet company is coming out Wednesday to get back on the roof and try to restore that. So it's just been, and our church administrator and our ministry facilitators, the 2 other people that work in the office with me, are both out. One is gone this week, and the other has still not made it back from evacuating because there was no gas. That was a crazy thing. We were fortunate in that we were in Orlando, so we were able to top off about 90 miles away from home.
I was wondering about you guys in gas.
So we're good.
Like fights were breaking out.
Weird.
They had to set up police officers at every gas station near us because of the amount of fights that were breaking out at gas stations. It was getting, it was starting to feel Mad Max-ish, because people would follow the tankers into the gas station that they were going to, so that way they knew they would get gas. It was odd.
We saw a highway patrol going just on the interstate while we were evacuating, and there was highway patrol, and we're like, what is going on there? And they were escorting a tanker. It was whatever the Fast and the Furious movie is, where they're trying to hijack the tanker. I think they're in Cuba, if I remember that storyline correctly. Michelle Rodriguez rejoins the team at that point. It's great. It's very exciting. Family's everything. And it was after she got killed off on Lost. Thank goodness. Ana Lucia was the worst.
Andrew, I love that you guys had church even though you didn't have power. It was pretty cool to see how all the area churches responded. Some were outside. They did outdoor services. Yeah. The weather was pretty good for that. Some opted to cancel.
It was hot by 11. By 11, we were ready to be done.
If you were in the morning, you were okay. Some churches did have to cancel because they didn't have a choice. Like they had no power, no internet. They weren't going to live stream. They couldn't send a video. Over 3/4 of their volunteers had no power and no way to get to the church. So I don't knock any churches for making the decision to cancel on Sunday.
Yeah, you got to make whatever the right decision is for your people.
For us, we had power. We had a handful of volunteers who said we're good to go. I told our staff last week the first question was, what are we doing on Sunday? And I just said, we're going to go. We're going to move forward, like all 3 services. And I'm like, yeah, all 3 services. I think there's no reason to not. And I just said, if you don't have any volunteers, that's fine. It'll be family service Sunday. I don't care if we have more babies in the worship center than usual. It was going to be a shorter sermon anyways. We did have enough volunteers to cover, a version of kids ministry and a version of nursery. So we were able to make it work. And I'm really glad we did. There was a lot of people in the community who needed a place to go and needed a place to worship. They weren't all Lakeview people. For the vast majority of them were Lakeview people. But I talked to several who said, you know what, my church was unable to go, and I get it, but we needed a place to worship, so we're here at Lakeview today. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, I had no problem, loving on those people. And it was an interesting Sunday for sure. I thought we'd see about half of our people, and at the 11 o'clock service, we had to pull in extra chairs because we were out of space. So it was one of those okay, I guess, and one of my staff members was like, Tim,
I guess people want to be gathered together.
The first comment to me was, Tim, I thought you were crazy for wanting to do all 3 services this week until I saw the crowd. And I realized, people wanted to get out of their house. A lot of them wanted AC. They wanted to be in worship. They wanted to see their church family. And it was really cool. It was a very different Sunday. I ended up pivoting. I had a sermon ready to go on Friday by about 10 a.m. And then by 7 p.m. on Saturday, I felt this nudge of, that's not the right sermon for tomorrow, which I didn't even tell you this. So I ended up rewriting, which I've never done, pivoted the entire sermon on Saturday night, rewrote it at 7 o'clock, and ended up doing a sort of weathering the storm, Matthew 7 sermonette, similar to you. And I contacted our entire prayer team, our deacons, our elders, and just said, whatever service you come to, that's fine. Can you just make yourself available? We're going to have an extended time of prayer. So I had them stand and scatter about the room. Anybody who needed specific prayer was able to go to them and pray. Otherwise, we had about 10 to 12 minutes of corporate prayer with, just some nice piano pad music in the background. And I think that moment, I heard so many people just saying that was like the most calm they had experienced in 2 weeks, just sitting and praying, because it wasn't craziness. And a lot of the last couple of weeks have been absolute insanity. How have your church members been? Have you guys had to help anyone? Anybody been in great need? Everybody been okay?
So the real catastrophic damage in our church was Helene. We had a couple of people that are on the water, and when the water came in, so that was the I've never seen this in a house before. But we had one family whose house got really, really bad damaged in this one, and so we were in there Saturday morning, and it's just hard, they've been working and sweating, and there's no power and all this stuff, and just trying to be pastoral, but also there's real felt needs that you're like, okay, well, give me the sledgehammer, give me the whatever, but that's also not my skill set. Like we said last week, it's kind of like when you expect a 14-year-old to build a house on a mission trip for someone who happens to be a contractor in whatever that country is. That's just not your role. So it's kind of how long do you stay in the house? What do you do? And also, one of the things that I've been keeping notes on my phone of things to talk about, and of course now we're using our phones for video, so I can't get to my notes. But one of the things I know I had was the awkwardness of offering help and accepting help. That's one thing that I've noticed this storm, and maybe because we just went through something, so inhibitions are lowered. But it's still weird how I think individualistic a lot of people are, and they don't want to accept help when they desperately need help.
Yeah, we definitely went through that for sure. Helene was rough because that was just catastrophic flooding for so many of our families. And I remember going into one of our church members' businesses. They have a grocery store in Tarpon, and it was gone. The water came up over the registers. They lost all their coolers. It smelled like death. And I'm just standing in there as they're, trying to clean and realizing I can't do anything here. So it was one of those weird feelings. I prayed with him in that moment.
Am out of my depth.
Yeah, I didn't know what else to say or do. We spent time in prayer. I just, you could feel for them. And then Milton was very, very different because it was just massive wind damage, like just the powerful winds blowing everything over. So we had multiple families that have experienced, catastrophic stuff to their home, to their stuff. And then what no one talked about, or I mean, around here we talked about it, and I think it finally made its way to national news, but after 15, 16, 17, 20 inches plus of rainfall, that rain has to go somewhere. And so it takes about a day or two for the rain to get into our rivers up here in Pasco County, and then another 12 or so hours after that for the major flooding to start. So 48 hours after Milton, maybe 36 hours, we were flooded. Like my area, and it wasn't anything we'd ever seen before. So I actually had two families that I knew the neighborhood well because I used to live in the neighborhood. So I called both of those families directly and said, one of them I actually called, I texted at 1 a.m. I wasn't sleeping, and I knew they weren't sleeping. I texted them at 1 a.m. the night of the hurricane as it was going through, and I just said, are you guys okay? Because I lived in that neighborhood and we experienced pretty severe flooding. And they responded.
You went viral one time. Like you were on the news because you had a GoPro on a drone, like before anybody had a GoPro on a drone. And so all of the news channels used your drone footage.
And so I reached out to a couple of families and I said, we're okay. The waters are higher than normal in our street. And then that next day, it started rising, even though the storm was gone, and it did not go down. And the National Guard ended up coming in, and the National Guard had to rescue 2 Lakeview families from those houses in that neighborhood. Yeah. So Steph and I ended up just saying, you know what, we're gonna go pick them up. So we went to the drop-off site where the National Guard was, and we just picked them up, took them back to the church.
Drop-off site gives it way more credit for what it is. It's not like, oh, here's a nice welcome station for us to drop you off. It's like here's a pin on a map. And you're, 10 feet above the water line.
Good luck getting to it. Good luck finding it. We were having to avoid flooded streets. They were all blocked off. So it was hours and hours of just trying to get these families out, get them to a safe space, get them to a dry space, get them into some AC, get them some warm showers. So we had the church ready to go. One of my elders ended up bringing a bunch of bedding to the student center, so we were able to house a family. Got them some snacks, got them taken care of. Showers were ready to go. Another elder actually picked up one of the families and said they can just stay with me. So we had elders housing church members. I think 3 of my elders actually housed multiple families in their homes, because when you're in an evacuation zone, you don't have to leave town. Yeah. You just have to get out of your zone. So people were just leaving zone A and getting over to zone D or out of zones altogether. So we were just opening up homes, and people were coming in and just doing whatever we could to make sure our people were safe.
Melissa's principal is Zone E, so ABC and D were evacuated. So she was told, like, you're good, you're gonna be fine. Their house completely flooded, like everything destroyed. Wow. Gut job for the whole house. And so now they're trying to. I mean, for everybody, there's real life, and then there's the work stuff going on. But when you're the boss of 100 plus employees and you're trying to coordinate getting back to work and getting a school cleaned up to have 800 students on campus, but you also can't get to your clothes. I mean, it's right. It's just a mess. And like, as Floridians, like you said, you've always wanted to live through one. I haven't been here my whole life, but I moved here when I was 8, and I remember being at my buddy's house. I would sleep over at his house whenever there was a hurricane cancellation, because he was the kid with the TV in his room and I didn't have one. So we would stay up watching the news. I hope it hits us this time. And nothing hits the greater Tampa Bay area. Ever. This was the closest direct hit we've had since 1921. And man, we literally live in a disaster zone right now. The president has declared our county a disaster area, and it feels there's survivor's guilt is real. Like having power, having internet. And so the house that I'm in right now is 40 feet from my driveway, but my parents are out of the country. And so I've gone to so many people at church, like, hey, we've got a guest house, come crash there for a couple weeks. And the amount of, oh no, we're good. We'll it's like, I know. It's so odd.
It's odd.
I mean,
it's odd.
We've had 5 or 6 different. Now, fortunately, this was like the good luck Chuck of houses. We had several people there. Like, okay, cool, we'll be there in an hour, and then hey, we were packing up and we got power. That happened 3 times. That as someone was packing up to come, stay here for a couple days, they got power. But it's not having all of your stuff destroyed makes you feel like you need to be doing something for sure. People right around the corner.
Yeah, so and then you're pastoring in the middle of this chaos and craziness. One of our families said they were on hold with 911 for 30 minutes. Like they said they had 60 callers ahead of them. So I told them they were in the danger zone with the floodwaters rising. So I'd actually called another member, and we had a boat ready. I texted you guys. We had a boat ready. We were going to go in and do the evacuation ourselves if they couldn't get first responders in there. Thankfully, they were able to get a hold of them, and we were able to get them out and get them to the church. But it was like, what else do you do in those moments? Like, you're checking on all your people. I had like the Google map ready, and so I knew exactly where. If you have Planning Center, and you can actually export your church members and pinpoint their locations. So I was looking at the map, and I could see where every church member's house was. So I knew who was in the biggest danger zones. So that's who obviously we were reaching out to first to make sure they were okay. But it's been wild. And like you said, some I didn't even know how damaged. And then on Sunday, they're like, yeah, we lost all 4 of our cars. We lost our house. I'm like, what? I didn't even know.
It's like, why didn't you call us? Like, why didn't you let us know?
Like, yeah, we're living with our daughter. I'm like, I didn't even know. But like some people just they don't really want to broadcast it to the world. I know we were Insta-storying our entire night because it was it was wild. And Avery is the weather girl. I must have heard from 3 dozen church members that said so it was cute. Like it made them laugh in the middle of like a lot of fear and anxiety. So they loved seeing Avery on there with her weather updates outside of our house. But not everybody wants to share everything with the world. So there was a lot of people that I had no idea had any damage. So a big plea for me yesterday with our church was, if we don't know about your need, we can't send
help.
A volunteer team to help in any way. So we do have projects lined up for most of this week, and I think projects are starting to go into next week too, where we're just whatever we can do. People have said, I'll wash clothes, I'll bring over a generator, I'll deliver food, I can help clean up. So I think there's been there's jobs for everyone, even if you can't go in with a chainsaw, but you can, cook a meal to deliver to volunteers.
Or if you have a 6-inch battery-powered chainsaw.
Yeah, you could absolutely use your 6-inch battery-powered chainsaw if you need to cut down a small limb of sorts.
It can get you about as thick as my arm. That's it. Anything thicker than that, it's.
But how do we pastor well in the midst of this insanity, right? Because Sunday's still coming. We're still going to be preaching next week. All these things are happening, and there's a lot of needs, not just with our people, but our community has a lot of needs right now.
Kind of on a whim, yesterday morning, I posted a thing about how pastoring post hurricane is a lot more food prep than sermon prep, and I was kind of being silly, because just we refer to there aren't many other times that I use prep in my vocabulary unless I'm talking about food or sermon. And the number of people I had reached out and be like, that is exactly what we needed. I was like, I was kind of joking on that, but it's less what you expect pastoring to be. It's just tangible. Hey, where can we be? Where can we be? What can we do is about the extent of it. So yeah.
Yep. So I think the cleanup will be extensive. I know it's going to be an own headache. It's just going to be a headache for me having to deal with. Insurance is the best and the worst at the same exact time. Is it always the worst? It might always be the worst. So
I think insurance is always the worst.
It's just one of those things. So yeah. Well, what's on the docket for Safety Harbor this week? Assuming power gets restored, are you guys? This is the conversation we didn't have because. I could have jumped back into 1 Corinthians yesterday, but it didn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel right just kind of ignoring what's happening around us. I do want to get back into 1 Corinthians next week, which is our sermon series. Are you in the middle of a series? Where are you at right now?
So we were starting a series this week, and it's kind of fairly time sensitive because I'm in Scotland for 2 Sundays coming up here in the middle of November. So, but whether it's fortuitous, serendipitous, ironic, I don't know. But the series that we are in, or it's called Turning Points, and we haven't been doing like verse by verse through an entire book. We've been kind of like picking a theme or like characters for the whole year. And so we haven't done really anything super thematic. But this is kind of what are turning points in people's faith. And so we were doing 5 of those. Like, here's where this person was. This is what changed. And so that kind of worked out well, because the beginning of that series was what God wants from you most is for you to trust him in the middle of any circumstance. And so that was kind of an easy, abbreviated intro to that sermon series.
Yeah, that worked out well. That worked out really well.
It worked out really well, and it's a good thing, because with everything else we had going on, I didn't have a whole lot of time to pivot and change things. But the rest of this week is just trying to get the power on, trying to get the internet on. So I've got meetings with people in the church that are just kind of hurting, that they want prayer, that they want an ear. So I've got a lot of that already on the calendar this week. But also, I'm the only one in the office this week, or I'm the only one in town. And so I've got to be there when the internet people are coming to restore that. And then I've got to be there to hope the power gets on, and hope the preschool can get back in. And then once the preschool is back in, possibly, kind of play troubleshoot and put out fires there. So it's just a bunch.
Yep, it's wild. It's bonkers. We've postponed a lot of
what
things
this week.
We had membership classes and parent meetings and camp things for youth that we had to just kind of push pause on all of those things and make sure our people are okay. So now it'll just be slowly getting back to what does normal look like for the next few weeks. We'll have a lot to talk about at staff meeting this week to make sure we're all on the same page. And speaking of staff, Andrew, it's kind of crazy because
we haven't even talked about
the
thing that we've been sitting on for 2 months.
We couldn't talk about this for an extended period of time because we were being sensitive and wanted to honor Epikos and their decision to make this announcement. But you might have seen yesterday, Frank made a pretty gigantic post. If you don't know Frank, it's Frank Gill, who co-hosts the Practically Pastoring podcast with us and our other show. But Frank went into an interview process with Lakeview Church back in May. I say went into, honestly, Frank and I, and Andrew, you've been here this whole time. Frank and I started these discussions probably 3 to 4 years ago, well before he went on his sabbatical. So several years ago, we just kind of had this initial discussion of what would it look like, Frank? Like, would you be open to joining the staff at Lakeview when the time was right? We have no desire to be Mega Lakeview Church, just not at all. It's not who we want to be. We want to plant churches. We don't want to plant satellite campuses. We want to send out actual pastors to pastor churches, not just campus pastors, not just satellite churches that pipe in 10
So for the
sermons.
record, you were saying that campus pastors are not actual pastors?
That's what I just said. No, of course not. Okay. We're sending out pastors who are not just in charge of a campus, but pastors who are going to be in charge of, what pastors are in charge of. So this discussion happened years ago. The timing wasn't right. Lakeview wasn't quite ready for it yet. And then over the last 24 months or so, we started to feel like it's getting close. About a year ago, I had the conversation with my elders of this is very real. Like, do we want to go down this road? And then early this year, it was, I think we're ready. We had added a few staff members. We're about at capacity for Lakeview Church. We have 3 services now. We still have room at 2 of the services, but the goal is never to have 6 services on a Sunday. If anything, I'd love to go back down to 2 services and send one of those services out to plant a church with our planting pastor, who, as you know, because Frank posted, I shared, Lakeview Church shared this morning, we have officially hired Frank Gill as our planting pastor. How wild is that? That is the craziest thing.
I love it.
He officially does not start until January 1. So, Lakeview, if you're watching, don't call him asking him for a bunch of stuff right now. He's not on the clock yet. But January 1, he will be. He made the announcement to Epikos, which I can only imagine how that went. Frank is... He's like this giant teddy bear that you just, anytime you're around him, you love being around him. He loves people. He's an amazing pastor. His wife loves being around people and serving. So I feel for Epicos right now because I know that that's going to be tough for them as they say goodbye to a great couple. So we're super blessed to get him down here. Andrew, you're super blessed to get him down here because he's probably going to be preaching at Safety Harbor from time to time. Let's be honest. Like, that's part of the goal is we want him to be able to help out area churches, not just Lakeview. So he'll probably help out down there in Safety Harbor.
Also, he's my buddy. I've known him longer than you have.
How crazy is that?
I'm just excited to have another buddy in town. I'm excited to expand our fraternity.
It's going to expand. The Morning After Ministry show is going to expand. It's big news for us, too. We're going to see if Frank wants to jump on board weekly with us. So we'll have a
Frank cam.
We'll have a Frank cam. It'll be a whole lot browner than the Dylan cam was.
When we're actually in studio, because we bought those brand new fancy pants expensive microphones,
that
we've used them twice in the past 2 months.
We never get to use them.
Yeah.
So planting pastor is a unique role, something we've never had at Lakeview. But the goal is within 18 to 24 months to send Frank out to plant in the greater Tampa Bay area. So ideally, Frank sticks around here in the area for a long, long time. And
forever.
We gain a very close friend out of this. We're still friends. It's just, it's a long distance relationship. It's tough. It's hard. You do what you can long distance. But when they're right there in the area, it's going to be a whole lot more fun. While he's at Lakeview, he's going to be stepping into kind of an associate pastor role where he'll be preaching once a month. He'll help with staff leadership and oversight. And he and I will also work very closely with the elders as well as a church planting network to help us get our feet off the ground when it comes to planting a church. Frank and I are doing a conference coming up in November. We're going to send Frank on a church planters assessment early next year. So, the ball's rolling. We're excited. I know our Lakeview people have been like, when can we talk about it? When can we talk about it? So Lakeview, we can now openly talk about it. Everyone's just thrilled to have him.
Out of the bag.
He came and preached early August, and he did a phenomenal job. It was,
like I said, we've been sitting on this for 2 months.
That's what I'm saying. He probably preached the best sermon that Lakeview has heard preached in, I don't know, quite some time. It was an absolute grand slam of a sermon. He did an amazing job.
At least since 2019.
That's what I'm saying. At least which, by the way, Andrew, I had a Lakeview member text me yesterday. I didn't realize what the day was, but October 13th, 2019, I was officially voted in as lead pastor of Lakeview Church.
Also, did you know that October 13th is supposed to be Pastor's Appreciation Day?
I heard that. Okay, funny story.
I had no idea. I opened Facebook when I got home yesterday. And I was like, whoops.
I may or may not have caught wind from one of my elders about something happening on Sunday, and I reached out and said, no, sorry. Like, the timing is not right now. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to get into it, but
we'll call it Pastor's Appreciation Month. Do it at the end of the month.
Yep. Apparently there's a day. It used to just be a month. Now it's a specific day, which, if you're a pastor in the greater Tampa Bay area right now is not the time for you to get recognition and to get praise.
For you to have accolades and
No. Did not feel right for so many reasons. So
probably a good call.
So all that to say, Frank's coming on board, Andrew. Frank is it's happening.
If you want more details about this, you should check out the Practically Pastoring podcast. That'll be everywhere you get podcasts later today, because we're going to record here in about an hour and a half, and
we're doing an interview really with Frank and myself.
Full conversation. We're
going to answer any and all questions that Andrew and Jeff have about what this is going to look like and how this could go really well or could go really bad.
Get fired.
It's not going to go bad.
If Frank is secretly planning a coup to oust Tim,
which it's possible.
Think about the previous succession at Lakeview.
It's happened, Andrew.
I'm just saying, sometimes the heir apparent just takes over way sooner than you would think. So
it was not on me. You know that.
It was not. Tim, I've got to ask you one important question before we wrap this up. What is on your shirt? What is the home service? I can't.
This is Shulman Home Services. So Tyler and Anita Shulman, they are Lakeview members. I found this shirt in the closet. They've been doing so much work for our people and around the area, and just just helping out wherever they can. He's a contractor in the area and just does anything and everything. I haven't worn this shirt in a while, and I'm like, you know what? This is a good shirt to wear right now. They were one of the families that I was calling and checking on because they were right on the river, and I was just praying that the waters would not rise. They were okay. Their house did not get any water intrusions. That was great.
Gotcha. In case you're curious, mine is Pawnee, Indiana. It's the seal of the city of Pawnee, with buffaloes being massacred and trees being chopped down because it was on the top of the clean pile.
I'm aware. I love it.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, let's hang out again. Same bat time, same bat channel next week, and maybe we'll actually be in studio.
And hopefully,
depending on power and Wi-Fi.
No more storms, no more hurricanes. That thing that's floating out there, don't even look at that right now. That's not coming this way.
No, we're fine. It's not. We can't. We're good.
We can't. It's not done. Right. Like it can't. It just can't.
Nothing else is coming near us. That would be.
I don't
bad.
know if I can. It definitely can't.
And as someone who's married to a Pinellas County Public Schools teacher, the school district cannot.
No. No.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Erica's wondering, how do we get a link to watch that? You need to follow on Facebook right now. Just look up the Practically Pastoring podcast. You can also search it anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's iTunes, Spotify, all of the above. Just search Practically Pastoring podcast, and you'll
won't
find
be
it
live
right there.
Like this, but
will not be live. We record it, and then Frank will post it
on YouTube within an hour or so of us recording those. So by this evening,
how about this?
Up for the world.
As soon as it gets posted, we will make sure to share it from the Morning After Ministry show, so you will be able to watch and listen.
I love it.
Perfecto. Andrew, you got work to do. We've got another podcast to record in about an hour, so go get some lunch, buddy.
Yeah. Later, buddy.
All right. See you guys soon.